Díomh chuirde agus fáilte isteach. Hello everyone and welcome into this month's members interview. It's Misha Emma and I'm the community manager here on Bitesize, and my job is to interact and help our Grow learners specifically, but everyone else with their Irish language learning. And this is a little series that we do where we interview Bitesize members. And this month we have Lynne. Lynne, conna sa tátu?
Go maigad.
Go huntach. And gur míle maith Lynne as a bheith. So thanks so much, Lynne, for being with me. We've met each other a couple of times already online, more than once. I see you monthly anyway in my Cugger Mugger, my monthly call with members. And of course, I know that you take part in our weekly live calls, Bitesize Bio. So gur míle maith. So I know a bit about you from Pobble, but I would like everyone to get to know you. So would you like to introduce yourself, maybe as Gaeilge first, and then for those who don't understand, as Béarla?
Come on. It's Misha Lynne. Rogu agus tagu I Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, May. Ach tamé mahoni I Florida hís anish. Ta ferrum bog eg merkela agus ma féin. Togamud gower agus shikeen. Agus fasamwed bara kosole trati prati agus mangoes. Daibri me san edicus fai dahad blian tame scoranish ac is ferramor me fos. Tosi me ag folum gaelaga timple triaca blian a hain ac harla and seal. Agus tosi me arish kupla bliana hain. So I'm Lynne, hello, and I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the US, and I'm living in South Florida now. My husband and I have a small farm where we raise goats and chickens, and we also raise crops like potatoes and tomatoes and mangoes, which we're harvesting right now. I worked in education for about 40 years and am now retired, although I am still a farmer. And I started learning Irish about 30 years ago, but life happened and I restarted learning about 2 years ago.
Wow. I'm really interested now. Not that I wasn't before, but I want to hear this 30 years ago story. So that was my next question. When was your first experience with Irish? So tell me your story, tell me the bits in between, and then maybe when you came back to Irish.
Well, I think perhaps like a lot of Americans who are interested in Irish, I grew up in an Irish American household. My father's family's from Drumsnaw in County Leitrim. But we didn't have any Irish in the household. We had a lot of traditions, but no real Irish. My father didn't speak. And we only learned when my grandmother started to suffer from dementia that she spoke Irish because she reverted to Irish. But honestly, even then, it still was not much of my life. And we traveled in Ireland fairly frequently, but maybe I just wasn't listening for it. Maybe the late 70s and early 80s weren't the heyday of the language in Ireland. But it wasn't until my husband and I were taking a course at Trinity University, doing some graduate work there, that we took a class and they were talking about the effect of the language on Hiberno English and on writers like Brian Friel and Miles Nagapel. And that really caught our attention. And of course, in the late 80s, there really was not internet. We didn't have home internet. You really not very good search engines. So we found through Trinity University the program nGall, which a lot of people know about. It's a residential program for adults in Donegal. And they had only just barely started by the time we went there. And so my husband and I went 4 summers, just a week each summer. And we really loved the learning. And the people, it was a very small program then, maybe 20 students total at the time. But, we picked up enough of the language to be able to say hello and be conversational. But again, there was just no way to practice. What you got back to, maybe if we'd have lived in Boston or New York, where there was an Irish community, but not in South Florida. So we tried. We're listening to like cassette tapes, things. It was pretty bad, but as you know, it's a language you really need interaction with people, and you need to have that opportunity to practice the pronunciations and to get revision. So we continued to travel in Ireland, but just our ability to study the language kind of fizzled out. And then a story I've heard a lot of people say, along comes Duolingo, right? In maybe 2019, I find Duolingo. And it was fun to see how much we remembered, and to start seeing the language written, but it was absolutely, there's no grammar, no support. You aren't understanding why sometimes you're saying something. You're just doing things by rote. And so one day, and now of course we do have internet, I was just searching, trying to figure out something that I'd read on Duolingo, and a link popped up to Bitesize Irish. So it was just totally random that I discovered you. I did a tiny bit of research and signed up that day. Because I knew I wanted particularly the community. I signed up for the GROW program immediately, because the opportunity to have the live calls and stuff was really exciting for me.
And the rest is history. Lovely. Wow, Lynne. A lot to take in there. Even you saying that you were at the start there with nGall, and I've never even been in Donegal myself at all, but even from here we send students to the Gaeltacht every summer, and they have a choice from any Gaeltacht that they choose, but everyone chooses nGall. I think also because it's such an accessible area to be in. Maybe not back then still, but I don't know, you can get a bus there from Dublin, and the program seems really, I've only heard good from it, so very, very interesting. And and then with the Duolingo thing, I agree. And this is the thing, I think a lot of people get their foot in the door, as you'd say, with Irish through Duolingo, but you need that next step. You can't become fluent with it. And have you had any other opportunities to practice in Florida, or are you fully online with the way that you use your Irish?
Yeah, fully online. Where we live, there really is not a community. Perhaps more down in the Miami region there might be, but we're kind of in a slightly rural area. So it's not. So we really are completely online. We went back to nGall this past summer, and just a whole different program. 100 people, and big classes, and it was great to see the level of the language. It was so exciting for me to see from the early 90s to now, just the level of people's language skills and people excited about it. It was really heartening.
Fab. Lovely. And isn't it, I just think it's amazing. It's great, isn't it, that you can do all of this online and then put it to practice if you want to. It's not that you have to, because from what I see online, I'm on Pubble Monday to Friday interacting with everyone, and I see that what's going on. You have our weekly calls, and then you have our new call now, Desh Kaintu, which is a chance for just members to meet without any of the Bitesize Irish team, and you can discuss whatever you want and practice. And I see you taking advantage of that, and it's really lovely to see, that you're really you've taken, GROW by the reins, and you're on it and you're doing it. And you, from what I see, going from strength to strength all the time. Your pronunciation every month that we meet, when you're on my call, I hear you getting better and better, and I'm not just saying that, I definitely can hear it. So it's definitely stood to you. It's definitely stood to you.
Well, and again, I think, as you mentioned, I think it's just that opportunity and support. I like the fact that what Bitesize offers are really a variety of ways to study the language. And I'll admit there's sometimes I just can't get on Pubble to do the weekly challenges, but then I have other programs that I can go and do some self-study. If I only have 15 minutes, I can do some self-study. And I love the new conversation class. It's just a hoot because everyone's so supportive. I mean, there are members there who are so fluent. But there are a lot of us who are just sort of starting and stumbling along a little bit, but everybody's supportive and it makes it really fun.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. You're all there to do the same thing. You're all there to learn, and no one should be in any way judgmental. Not that I've ever seen that in not even one instance have we had a bad experience with any member. And thank the Lord, because, you know, there's no, what's the point? I don't see the point. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about your family. So you said you're originally from, well, your family come from Leitrim. Do you get there often? Do you have any facts or any information for us about that?
Well, I still have cousins. And so we go to Ireland my husband and I, about every other year. He calls himself Irish by marriage. So we visit cousins there. And ironically, his sister married an Irishman as well. And I've found out that I'm actually related to some of his relatives. They're from Cavan. So it's a fun family. But and then we spend a lot of time on the West Coast. We have some very good friends in Spittle, just a couple we met 35 years ago that we've just become very good friends with, and another very good friend in Kelshama. So we spend a lot of time in that region too. And so it's been nice to have some Irish, particularly when we're in Connemara, of course. Just not a lot in the part of that part of Mayo, but in the Connemara region. And our friends are Gael, they're native speakers. And when we first met them, it was, again, interesting. They wouldn't really speak Irish even when we were around. But now, and in fact, she told me when we started going to Edgescale, we were crazy. But now we can talk a little bit in Irish, which is really nice. And having that little bit of Irish, I find, really enhances your experience. Even just to talk to a shop owner a little bit. My husband and I had an amazing experience last summer. We went to the Padraig Pearse Center in Connemara. And if anyone, I highly recommend, if you're interested in history, the history of teaching of Irish, the Troubles, what an amazing place. But when we walked in, the docent just made a little joke. He looked at us and he said, "I guess that's 2 senior tickets." And I laughed, and without even thinking, I said, "Yes, Tashin Kert." And he looked at me and said, "Oh, on Gaelic or who?" And I said, no, it's Tussahorme. But from that point on, we got a personal tour of the facility. Of course, all in Irish. Hig me fuila. I understood about half of it. But he was just so excited that here were these 2 kind of crazy Americans who were really making the effort to learn the language. So it would have been a great experience without that. I mean, it was a wonderful museum, but that, to be able to have that extra, and I've always had people appreciate the fact I try to speak Irish when we're there. I've never had anybody shockingly rude to me because my Irish is so bad.
No, never. Even when I worked in a cafe, or even when I worked in another cafe in Cork, and I just loved when I heard Irish. No one would go to order their coffee in Irish from me, but as soon as I heard them speaking, I'd often hear mothers speaking to their children in Irish, or, I'd even see the local children with the uniform on of the Gael Skull. I would make a point to speak Irish, and we'd both be appreciative of speaking Irish, especially as a tourist coming to the country. I think you can't ask for a private tour of the centre, especially Oscoilia. That's something that's bestowed upon you by accident, but through you just saying a couple of words. That's it. I think, there's always that kind of, with any language, it doesn't have to be Irish. You're kind of afraid to use even the couple of words that you might have, although I know you have more than cúpla focal. But, when you're in the situation, you feel put on the spot and you might not always want to go ahead with it in case it's wrong. But my opinion is it doesn't matter if it's wrong, because it's the effort behind it, and it's probably not wrong. You're just afraid. You're a little bit insecure. So you need to, getting that first word out, or those first cúpla focal out, can really bring things that you're not, you wouldn't expect, or that you wouldn't normally experience. So wow, really, I normally do try my hand with Gaeilge wherever I can, but I'll have to do it in a couple of different places to see if I can bag any
personal tours. Well, and I will say that that's what the live calls with Bitesize give you, the confidence to get those couple words out there, because you are practicing the speaking a couple of times a week.
Exactly. And it helps so much. Even before I worked with Bitesize, I live abroad myself, and I say this often, I don't get the chance to access the language fluently. Of course, I teach it here, but it's often, I teach in English and I'm explaining things, but having conversations, I wasn't having them that much. And then it came to when I started with Bitesize, and our weekly meetings are Oscoilia. So I have 1 hour a week where I speak Gohumlan Oscoilia, so totally in Irish. And just Kaurin Shishin Ho Morlum, it really helps me so much. And it's gotten me back to where I was before I left Ireland. I left, and obviously I was, in the swing of German and didn't really mind about my Irish. And then when it came to it, when I did have to have a conversation with someone with a Gaeilgeoir, I thought, oh, what's that word? What's this word? So it really does help, and it gets you back to, or gets you up to a certain level that you need, because you have to practice. It doesn't matter what language it is. And it sounds to me that, because I was going to ask the question, what's your goal with Irish in the end? You have an end goal, but to me, from the sounds of it, Lynne, I feel like you're already living your goal. You're already in it. Of course, you want to improve, but I feel like even the fact that you can travel to Ireland, and you have traveled to Ireland too, and used the language, especially, seems to me like you've already ticked that box.
Yes, I think so. I mean, now I guess my hope is ultimately to be able to read a little more fluently. I'm reading very low-level books, and I took a class in Irish poetry, and was really excited to have enough to understand some of the nuance of the language, but like to go there as well, that next little step. Which, of course, some of the courses that we're working with now on Bitesize that have sections of reading and mythology and stories is a big help for reaching that goal as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we had in mind. We launched Too Small, which was the first course for beginners and for people returning to Irish or starting out at the start. And then we thought, well, what do we need for the next step, and what do people actually want to achieve? Obviously, we have our live calls, as we said, but for those who want to do that self-study, I think that really does help, and especially because we do provide the written word and the spoken word, and you can read without listening, you can listen without reading, and then you can put the two together, and you can use that in many different ways, whatever suits you best. Some people learn better when they hear it, others read better. You can combine the two, and I'm glad to hear that you're making use of that as well, because I find the courses myself, even I go through them, and because Neil makes them, I don't see everything that's made until it's launched, so I get excited to see what Neil has come up with every month. So I think they're a real, and they can only get better. We're only adding to them bit by bit, so they're a real treasure to have on Bitesize, I think, and happy to hear that you're enjoying them.
Definitely.
Well, Lynne, gohuntach. Well, I think that's all my questions. You've answered everything that I had in my mind, and really, I'm delighted to hear that you think so highly of everyone on Pobble as well. I love to hear, everyone always only has good news about everyone else, but it's always nice for me to hear it from the horse's mouth, and that you're enjoying Bitesize, and again that you're ag dul ó neart go neart, going from strength to strength, and I wish you all the best in the future. And gur míle maith agat as a bheith leirlumm.
Like
Slán go fóill.
Slán go fóill.
Check out Bitesize Irish courses and resources at bitesize.irish.